Welcome to Dating at Her Age. This week, Caitlin's going to tell us all about her social media sabbatical, how it is impacting her personal life, and then we're going to branch out and talk about how she foresees this impacting her dating life. So, Caitlin, let's start here. How long have you been on this sabbatical?
I started this, it was around February 12th, so it's been over a month now. And I'm at the point where I'm starting to I'm a little less strict on myself, but I have learned a lot over the past 30 days.
Okay, so can I just quiz you?
Yes, go for it.
I'm so curious about the sabbatical. Let's start here. What made you decide to take a sabbatical off of social media?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but I mainly didn't like how much I was on my phone all the time, and it was kind of TikTok that was a big one. I just felt like I was doom scrolling all the time, and I didn't have a great sense of control over my use of social media and what I was consuming. It was kind of controlling me, and so I just was trying to get strict on myself and take it away completely. So I blocked apps, I deleted apps, I couldn't access them.
Okay, let's pause right there because I want to know more about blocking and deleting.
Okay.
Did you use another app to block these apps? Can you walk us through that?
Yes. There are plenty of apps out there because I have an iPhone. The iPhone just time limit doesn't work for me because you can bypass it so easy, and I need more control than that.
And that's something you can go into your settings and set time limits on.
So if you have the self-control, that works great, but it does not work for me because I just bypass it.
I've used time limits on my iPhone before, and what happens is the screen, it kind of shuts down the app, right?
Yeah, it does.
But you can bypass it.
It says remind me or it says ignore, and I'm just like, they make that way too easy. So I would like to have some words with Apple specifically.
So you go in search of an app that will do this for you.
Yeah, so I got a free trial of an app called Opal. I'm not endorsing this app, it's just the one that I used. And I used that for about 2 weeks on the free trial, and you can completely lock the apps, block them. It goes on a schedule, and there's like deep focus modes and ones where you can kind of get in there and bypass it after a few steps, but deep focus, you have to wait until the next day. You don't really have an option.
Okay, so that particular app, and there's others out there.
I needed to be cut off, and it worked.
Will cut you off from an app.
Yeah, and it is paid now, so I did decide to pay for it just because it was helping me.
Can I ask you how much?
I think it's $10-ish a month. It's around 8 to 10. I can't remember the exact, but it's around that.
Okay, so do you have just certain apps that are set up to shut down until the next day, and then others you can kind of sneak a peek around?
So for my social media detox is what I've been calling it. I deleted Facebook. I logged out of my personal Instagrams because I do manage Instagram accounts, so I needed to just be on there to check it. But I have limits on when it's available to me and when it's not. TikTok, I completely blocked, and the only reason I blocked it and didn't delete was because at the time it was not available in the App Store, and I didn't want to lose it completely. But now it is.
Oh, because of
the TikTok ban,
right?
So that one's blocked, and it's actually still blocked, and I can't figure out how to unblock it. So I don't know if I can ever get on there again. But yeah, so it was just I was cut off, and Snapchat was one that I actually didn't think I considered like a problem social media for me, but I decided that I needed to get rid of that one too. And that one actually had the biggest impact on me.
And did you use the app to block Snapchat?
I just deleted it.
You just deleted it. Okay, so it sounds like there's been a potpourri of different avenues that you've kind of cobbled together to address different social media apps, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat. Yeah. And how much time were you spending on these apps?
So when I looked at my social media focus on my screen time, because we work in media, we tend to be on our phones and just on screens a lot, but I was averaging like 4 hours a day on social media.
Just on social.
And that was not like productive time. Like I know it wasn't. There were times when you'd get on every now and then, or if I was working, but I do that a lot.
It's not like you were producing content for the station we work at, the news station. You were just on there scrolling,
or I posted a video for myself, but that's not really what's taking up the time. So it was about 4 hours is what I learned. And after I deleted them, like the first few days, it was cut in half. Like my total screen time was down to like an hour and a half total.
Okay, so now we know why you did this. How has it impacted your life now that you are, 6 weeks into this?
Yeah.
Social media sabbatical?
So many things. I'll just start with just basic on my mood, and then we'll get into more of like how this impacts my dating life, I suppose.
Yes.
But I just noticed from a personal standpoint that my anxiety decreased significantly. The first couple of days, you do feel like you have this muscle memory of wanting to grab, and you start to feel a little isolated. And this is where I think Snapchat impacted me, because I didn't realize that I used that as a primary way to communicate just with my friends. on Snapchat, and I was like, oh, I guess I need to just like text them if I'm curious about what's going on. But I couldn't see like the
so you
little.
do have an alternative path to get a hold of them
you
through
just
text.
Them. But that's part of
Right.
that's part of the reasoning why I wanted to do this as well. But my mood changed significantly, and mind you, this was the week of Valentine's Day that I decided to do this, and I noticed on Valentine's Day, on a day that I would actually be in like a bad mood or just in maybe like a, I don't know, less cheery mood, and just
fear of missing out mood.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
And I was in such a great mood. And I was like, is it because I'm not online seeing what everybody's doing? I actually think that it was, because I just felt so positive. And I noticed I was sleeping a little bit better.
Like because you went to bed earlier? Or?
I think it was because my mind was able to shut down faster, and I wasn't just consuming content as a way to go to sleep. Like, you know, I would still watch YouTube videos, but they're longer form. Or I would watch like a movie or something like that, or I would read. Those types of things.
Like read a book?
Yeah. They kind of replaced, I did replace it with that, but it was more fulfilling to me instead of just mindless scrolling and fast-paced switching between moods all the time. Because when you do get on TikTok, for example, or any short form or reels, shorts, whatever it is, you're switching from like happy, sad, jealous, angry,
all
frustrated. It's just like all the time.
Video,
and
yeah.
I did notice that within myself, which was a part of, as I explained, why I did it. But after I got rid of it, I was just like, I'm calm. I can actually focus on this book. I can focus on this movie. I can focus on the conversation I'm having without wondering what's going on with that muscle memory. It really just made me feel more present, and just sit with my own thoughts, because I do also think that when you're on social media, you're just getting information from people and other people's opinion, which is not a bad thing, but where's the room for you to think for yourself?
So are you bored?
I wasn't, because I just all these things I wanted to do. I could read, I could go outside, think about that, things I wanted to do, but I was like,
grass.
all of these things that I'm like, I say I don't have time to do. I do have time. I was just wasting my brain power on social media and scrolling. It was overwhelming.
And when you did that audit of how much you were on social media as you were thinking about doing this sabbatical, you found it was probably average of 4 hours a day on social media.
Yeah.
And yet you were on social media for 4 hours a day thinking you don't have time to do anything else.
And I didn't realize it was that. You don't realize it's that much time that you're wasting, because it's just you go home at the end of the day and you start scrolling. But in those times, you know, I can make myself a nice dinner. I can read a book and learn something more focused and more in depth than getting small sound bites of different information all the time, or just watching a movie. But it was kind of mind-boggling to me, because I have a hard time sitting still and staying focused on things. But just like watching a movie, I just would watch it, and I wouldn't be worried about what I need to do next or getting things. I would just sit there, which is kind of unheard of for me.
So you're on a social media diet, like any diet. Do you have a desire to cheat?
At first, yeah. And I will say that I would allow myself on Facebook occasionally on the computer, just because I do like work in social media on the side a little bit, and I schedule things out. I wanted to check that they were there, but I tried really hard to not allow that and not check things for personal reasons. So I did feel temptation, but once I got past like a couple of days, I didn't care to check TikTok. I didn't care to check Instagram, all of these things, because you don't know what you're missing, essentially.
It sounds like when I give up sugar, and I have over the years given up, especially compared to what I used to eat in terms of sugar, the more I stay away from sugar, the less I want sugar.
And that's
kind of
exactly the same thing. Because I'm at the point where I'm allowed to have it. I did give Snapchat back because I like having a connection to my friends.
Why can't you just text your friends?
Well, I can.
Why Snapchat? What is that? What do you think that the draw is to Snapchat?
I don't. It's just because I can see my friends. And this is the point I'll get into.
Because you can see their locations on Snapchat.
Well, not really the locations, but just I can see images into their lives. Instead of, they don't text you pictures all the time. But I do have, like, I'm only allowed to get on Snapchat for 30 minutes a day, and I don't have any notifications turned on.
So you've restricted it.
Yeah, and okay. I'm in control of it.
And when you don't turn off notifications, you kind of just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's reached out. So if I decide I want to check it after work or whatever, I will, and I can see if anybody Snapchatted me, but I'm not going to let it distract me.
So that's yet another way you've put yourself in control of social media instead of having social media control you. I want to pause on that for just a moment. as I'm thinking that through, when I had my TikTok notifications on for a while, I don't know why. I don't really need them on.
Yeah, turn those ones off.
But when I had a notification pop up, I would get this urge to click on it to see what the comment was or what the message was. And then when I turned them off, I just don't know if anybody's messaged me. I don't know if anybody's commented, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And you don't need to know, because it's just going to end up getting into the cycle of that. And I'm still a little hesitant if I really do want all these apps on my phone. I've considered not even having Snapchat, but I let myself have it a few days ago, and I'm just adapting, and I'm seeing how, if I start to get to the point where I'm kind of like looking at it more than I want to, I'm going to probably delete it again.
If you start, like I said, social media diet reminds me of any food diet. If you start back down on the same road of the same habits, you're just going to be back to 4 or 5 hours a day again on using social media, just like with any diet. If you go off of it and you go back to your old habits, you're going to start consuming the same food and eating unhealthy food like you were before. Do you feel like you have it in you to do this long term?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really feeling tempted to get the other ones back. So
you don't feel isolated from the world?
I do a little bit. There's some things with TikTok, because you get a lot of information from TikTok. It feeds you very new content all the time. So at first I was really like, wow, what am I missing out on the world? Like, what news am I not getting? And we work in news, so I read it. I know things that are happening, but there are some things where it's just this thing goes viral on TikTok, and I'm like, I haven't heard about this. I had that experience where people were asking me if I knew about something, and I was like, I don't know. I haven't been online.
It had gone viral, but you were the only one.
Yeah, I was like, I hadn't
group.
seen these videos. Like, I don't know. Like, but then you have that, but then it's also like, it's a little bit of a battle of, do you want to be informed with all this loud information, or do you want to maybe just stay
You are literally describing my childhood.
Yeah.
This is how I grew up. I was born in the late 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and it was none of this existed. Didn't even know it was on the horizon. Didn't even have a cell phone. Every phone you had was attached to a wall. Until they came out with the cordless phones, and they were like, what's this? You can walk around with this? But you couldn't go far because you would lose the signal. Had no idea what was going on in other parts of the world unless you read the newspaper, which I was in love with journalism from the time I was 8 years old. So I watched, all the major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS at night with my parents, and I read 2 newspapers, like they got delivered to our house every day. I'd read them back to front to back. But if you were going to find out what somebody was doing in their life at school, you were not going to find out through something called Facebook or Instagram. You were going to go ask them about them. And talk to them in person.
How scary, right? That's how I felt about it. But
how scary? You mean my life?
No, just like the thought of talking to somebody in person.
Oh, no, you just didn't know any better.
Them. Yeah,
Caitlin.
you don't.
Okay, so
I know.
I think this speaks to the very concept of the show, dating at her age, being in my late 50s, you now being 30. We grew up in 2 generations apart, and it wasn't scary because that's all we knew. That's how it began from a very young age. If you wanted. First of all, we didn't have things called play dates. My parents just, you sent your kid out the door, told me to stay, within view of the front window. And we went and knocked on, we had, my best friend's name was Debbie. She lived across the street. She was Big Debbie. I was Little Debbie because she's a little older than me. So I would just go knock on Big Debbie's door. And Big Debbie and Little Debbie would play together out of, until the sun went down. And it wasn't scary to go and talk to anybody because that's the only choice you had. Or you just sat in your room and didn't go ask Big Debbie to play.
Yeah.
So it's not scary if that's how you grew up. But for your generation, it must be odd
today. Now, I will say that I would say millennials, as the listeners know, I'm 30 years old now. I have an interesting relationship with social media and just technology and all of that because I grew up, my childhood was like that, like yours. it wasn't there. I think it was emerging, but I got my first just dumb phone, quote unquote, flip phone in 5th, 6th grade, and I shared it with my brother just because we had a phone. But
well, by way of comparison, I got mine at 25 or 26
different. So there's a difference there, but I do know what the childhood was like without that, where you just did the play dates, you talked to people, and that's what you did. And then I got into, junior high, high school, social media began to emerge, and it's definitely not as crazy as it is now, but it started.
Yeah.
And so I was on it then, but it's like I had this childhood without it, and then it just kind of was this great thing, and now I'm trying to assess my relationship with it because
You're trying to back down from it.
It's become too loud and too much, and there is just a way to refocus how we use it. And that's really just what I was trying to explore with doing this. And
I love
because
that you did this.
I feel like I'm lacking in-person relationships. That's just how that was another big reason as to why I did this.
Which I think is a great moment now to cross over to how you think this could impact your dating life in the future.
It does, 100%.
How?
When I did this, that was another motivating factor because I do live alone, and I had this realization that all of my connections outside of work, I see you every day. You're the person I talk to every single day. They were all digital. They were online, and I felt like I was connected with people because I had these glimpses into people's lives, and there's a positive there that I think shouldn't be ignored. Social media can connect you to people. It can do all of these great things, but I didn't realize that I was not talking to people. I didn't talk to people one-on-one. I didn't call them and have a more in-depth relationship with my friends and my family. I just was, I saw them on social media. I was like, oh, they're okay today. They're alive. They're at work. They're doing their thing. I know kind of what they're doing today. But it wasn't a real in-depth connection. And I wanted to challenge myself to be better on the other side and kind of also test who wants to reach out to me, just in my
friends. Who your real friends are.
So, yeah, and that it does lead into just the connection overall as to why I feel like when it comes to just, your dating life, and this can be the same thing with dating apps, you can get so consumed and thinking you're connecting with people, but you're really not. And we talked about this early on. Dr. Tom Golightly kind of said that the dating app is just,
he joined us for one of our first episodes.
It's just a tool. And I think that information is helping me get to this point as well. I've been thinking about how that's being used and how it's the same thing with social media.
And if you haven't heard that episode, go back and listen. Yeah. Go back and listen to all of our episodes. But what Dr. Tom addresses is that just because you're on the dating app does not mean you're dating. And we're conflating that being on the app and swiping with saying, oh, we're dating. No, the dating app is only a tool to connect you with somebody else who might be somebody you could potentially date. And when he said that, the aha moment for me is I was treating the dating apps, talking back and forth for days and sometimes weeks before we would meet. And maybe we wouldn't even meet. It would just dissolve before we ever connected for a real date. It was an aha moment for me to say, oh, this is just a tool. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not going to I can't keep spilling my whole life story to somebody I've never really met in person. This is just an app. It's another form, in other words, of social media.
Yeah, it is the same thing. So I would say your phone and social media is also just a tool, but you have to use it with intention, and you have to know what you're getting on for and not let it take over your life and just fuel your thoughts. Because I don't think at this point that all social media needs to be on our phones connected to us 24/7. I think you can still have it, but get on it on a computer if you have that, or like a tablet. So it's a little bit more of a step to do it.
So you have to remove it from your phone. You still have access to it on your laptop.
Or any sort of different way.
Delete the app altogether if that's what you want to do, and then you have to re-download it, which makes you think, do I really want to take the time?
Yeah, and you still do, but it's so easy to just get consumed with it and start getting your focus messed up is how I see that. And if you're wanting to just date or connect with anybody, I think like one of the epiphanies I had when I would say I got bored, but I had this list of things I wanted to do, and one of them was go outside. And then there was also a thought in me that scared me. It was the first Saturday that we saw sunshine here in Utah. And I was feeling a little sad because I didn't feel connected to my friends, but it probably would have been the same way because I live a couple of hours from a lot of my friends. So I tend to face this every summer where it's sunshine and I just want to go drive 5 minutes and be with my friends. But I realized I was like, I could go to like a restaurant and, sit at the bar or something and just see if I connect with someone. And I have never had that thought before. I'm fine to go to restaurants by myself and like have a meal, but I usually just keep to myself. But what a challenge that would be to actually go sit at a bar and talk to people there as a solo person.
That's where they sit all the single people.
Well, but there's a point, though.
I know from experience.
But I've never thought to do that.
Which is actually good if you are looking to connect with humans.
Yeah.
Compared to being seated in a booth, in the corner. And do you think you thought that because you looked at your list of things to do and it did not include hop on social media for 4 hours, and so now you're kind of sounds like you're reinventing you?
It just helped me think more. It opened up my mind to the things that I think were getting distracted with social media and just thinking I was fake connecting with people. And I was like, well, you're feeling a little lonely or you're having FOMO to something you don't even know is happening. Like I was just imagining all my friends hanging out with me without me.
You're missing out.
But I have no idea if they were actually doing because I didn't have social media. I don't know what they did that day. But it was just sunny. And I was like, well, there's people out there. Like you just got to go find them. And I was like, I had an epiphany that I just have to actually go do it. And that's something I've been trying to tell myself to do and do it with intention. But it doesn't have to be as scary as you think in that way. So
is this experiment, your sabbatical, has it spoken to you in terms of your dating life?
Yeah.
And connecting with somebody in person instead of trying to jump back on the apps and find somebody that way?
Yeah, totally. And I just think that example right there is things that I want to take that step and actually do it. I didn't quite get there because I was nervous.
Oh, so you actually didn't?
I didn't go
out
like that day. I didn't, but it's in the back of my mind. Like I'm gonna do it. I have it in my head to go do that. Like, and I don't know when. I just got to pick the place that I feel comfortable. Maybe I should go to like a high end place and just be a very eligible bachelor. But
well, why not?
It's a joke, but yeah. For sure. But I think that it also just reminded me of like, even when I'm just hanging out with a group of friends or anybody, just to be more present and with them. And I don't have to worry about taking a picture of where I'm at and posting it on social media. That was another thing I noticed. I was taking pictures, but I was taking less of them because I was like, well, if nobody's going to see it, I don't need to take a picture. So there's a lot of things personally that I was seeking validation for some reason that I didn't realize on social media when I can just, have a much more in-depth connection in person.
You just be.
Yeah, and you don't have to, but it took a minute to get there. I think I struggled for the first, few days, but it really didn't. It just became less loud. And I was like, wow, I can think. I feel more creative. I feel more like I am able to think for myself. And I'll just mention one other thing that I challenged myself to do the first week. It was Valentine's Day. It was a Friday. And I got this crazy idea to call my friends and tell them Happy Valentine's Day. And what a shock to them because that's not something I would do. So I came home from work that day and I was like, I'm going to be bold. And I was nervous. I was so scared because there was like my mom wouldn't have thought anything. And like a couple of my friends that I do tend to call often. But I don't call them in the middle of the day, like randomly. So I called them and some of them were like, hello, what's going on? Like, is everybody okay? Like, what's going on? And it was a signal to me that, I need to be better at just connecting with people I already have in my life, but just in general. But I think it goes both ways.
I have a few thoughts about all of this. Can I?
Yeah, please. I've been rambling. I just had to throw it all out there.
I love that you've done this. And I'm curious to see where your dating life goes with this. If you're spending less time on social media and looking for real life connection, if you're giving yourself 4 hours back a day, 7 days a week,
it might even more than that on the weekends.
Yeah. You're giving. Let's say you're just conservatively, you're giving yourself back 30 hours a week.
It's a lot, and that app I have totals it. It's like you just saved this much time in your life.
That's a windfall of time, and you have to, I think, then pivot to putting it to good use, productive for you. And I don't mean cleaning closets. What I mean is, what are you seeking? What are you wanting to gain with that? And you have been wanting to find somebody, find that connection. Friends, maybe down the road, a boyfriend. You're going to give yourself back 30 hours a week. And I think you need to sit down and say, collectively, what can I do with that time? It's not just 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right. That's enough time to do a quick road trip somewhere and come back, on a Friday to a Saturday and come back and maybe meet somebody in a different state or a different part of Utah, That's a lot of time to get back. And so I think if you're doing that, you say, okay, well, how am I going to use this time to gain something that enriches my life?
Yeah.
And there's a lot that could be a class. And we've talked about how, like taking a class could, educate you on whatever that class is about, but also connect you with more friends, maybe somebody you can eventually date. Just think about all of those great opportunities that you've opened the door to because you have taken the social media cleanse, the sabbatical, and you've stuck with it, which is commendable. It's like diets are hard. Mm-hmm. They're just hard. They take a lot of willpower. And they take so much willpower. At least I am a world-class lifelong dieter from food. And I know I yo-yo. I've yo-yoed for most of my adult life on diets. They're hard to stick to. So that's number one. Congratulations. That's incredible. In a time when everything is about social media.
It is. And that's why it's hard.
You're reclaiming your life and you're becoming, or you're reclaiming the CEO status of your life. Yeah. You are the chief executive officer of your life. Nobody's going to come along at your age and give me your phone. We're taking social media apps off your phone. We're wiping them from your computer and we're giving you an app, basically building a wall that you cannot get over to use social media. You're the one doing that. Mm-hmm. And you've stuck with that. And that's kind of hard. It's a hard thing to do. And it's a hard thing to feel like left out. If you feel left out, it's a hard thing to stick to the diet, but you've done it. And I do think it'll lead to more opportunities for you to meet new people and bring new people in your life because you're not stuck on these fake connections online.
Yeah, and it can be so overwhelming. Just the world is very loud when you're on social media and the dating apps. It seems like there's a lot going on with all of that and the different connections. And also just you may get on TikTok and scroll through a bunch of different dating advice, which can be great. I'm not discounting that this is bad information or anything that's out there. But when it's so loud, I think I mentioned you don't really get to think for yourself and sit with how you feel. You're just thinking like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do that because this person said that. That's a great idea. It's just so loud and overwhelming all the time. And it just takes away the ability to sit in silence and be present, even if you don't realize it. I think that I didn't realize it because I was like, I'm alone all the time. I'm in silence, but it's just there's so much noise coming from the phone. And as I reached that 30-day mark, it was last Wednesday, that I was technically 30 days. I was like, I'm not ready. I don't think I trust myself.
I love that.
To allow this back in. And I did the slow approach with Snapchat, but I'm still just like, I get anxiety thinking about getting on, even though I am curious. I want to know, but I just don't know if I'm ready for that anxiety to come back in my life.
Maybe what you're finding out is you don't need it that badly in your life.
I don't know if I do. But and the conflict as well is because I said I work in media. I do videos. I like creating. I really like creating video content. And so it actually opened up my brain to think a little bit more intentionally with that. But the problem is, well, if you're not on it, how do you get it out there? I found the way to do it, so I don't have to be obsessing over the likes, the comments, getting it on and just seeing, if people are reacting, but I can still create
some sort of automated way of...
Yeah, there's just external websites that you can use to schedule content out. I still,
So you found a workaround to needing to be on the social media apps to post content.
It's not the most effective way as you have to manage it, but it worked. It works.
The point I think is that's important is that you are finding new ways to get this out of your life. It's just not working for you. Mm-hmm. And to get out into the community more, and eventually you'll end up at a restaurant somewhere.
Hopefully,
who knows?
I'm going to
seated by yourself, seeing if there's somebody there, you can start a conversation. I guarantee you there will be somebody there you can start a conversation with, and also opening up your mind to meeting people maybe down the road, somebody you can date by doing something other than doom scrolling on your cell phone in your home.
Yeah,
because we don't even know these people, most of them. Most of them, as you're flipping through social media, people pop up on my feed all the time. I think they're cool. They're funny. They post great videos, but I don't know them. Mm-hmm. And they don't know me. These are the real connections that you have been talking about and that you've taken this really major step to make it happen in your life. I think it's incredible. Congratulations. And I want to add one more thing when we're thinking about social media, dating our lives and organizing our lives. And so, our lives are running the way we want them to run. I'm not a therapist, but I go to one, and he's awesome. And I approached this very kind of concept with him recently, Caitlin, that you're talking about. And that's, how do I recapture my time, for different reasons. Mine wasn't social media, although I'm now going to adopt your social media diet plan for sure. But for other reasons, like, how do I reclaim my time when everybody seems like they want a piece of me, right? They need help. They need my assistance. They need to talk to me. It happens to all of us. We have friends, we have family, we have jobs, we have people knocking at our door trying to sell us something at 7:00 at night, all the things. And I don't always have it in me to just say no, right? Which is what you were experiencing with social media. You just didn't have the willpower to say, no, I'm not going to allow myself to get on social media today. So I'm going to take steps to create barriers for myself to get on social media. And that's what you did. And he suggested that anytime something is pulling me away from what I want to do, what my goals are, pause. First is pause. So maybe that's a text message from a friend who's demanding my time in the evening to help them with a project. But I had an exercise class scheduled, and I have to go run to the grocery store because I'm going to make a cake for somebody's birthday the next day. And these are the things that I want to do and on my agenda. But I push them aside because I'm going to run. I can't say no. I don't know how to say no in a nice way. So I just say yes. And he said, do that. You pause, and then you think of, what am I giving up that I want to do? What am I giving up that I want to do today for somebody else or something else, to help somebody else, or to jump on social media and doom scroll? What am I giving up? And I can usually come up with 3 or 4 things that I really wanted to do in that day or that afternoon or that evening that I know I will not get done, and I will regret it if I don't get it done, to sacrifice my time for either social media or for a friend. And I'm saying, we can all be good friends. It's not like I don't want to be rude about it. So I want to help people. But at some point, everything else is distracting us in our lives. And if we don't ask ourselves, what am I missing out on that I really want to do? It's not selfish. I don't think that's selfish. I think that is how we start to reclaim our lives and the ownership and the direction of our lives. And that's basically what you have done with social media, is like, you don't have the willpower, like a lot of us, to just say no, right? Because you get the notification, you click on it, and then before you know it, you're 20 minutes into scrolling again. Now you're 4 hours in just in one day again. You don't have the willpower to say no. But when you start realizing how much you are sacrificing to do that, how much you're giving up that you want to do, like you really want to do, go out and meet people, go outside, get to know people, take a class, go to a movie, whatever that is. When you start realizing how much you are giving up, you start to lean in to the concept of learning how to say no nicely, or putting up barriers that help you say no. And that's what you've done. And I've started to do that too. And now I'm going to apply that same theory to social media.
Yeah, if you see it consuming your life and taking over, I think that's really important.
We all are.
That's the whole point.
It's like, unless you're a select few people who absolutely refuse to get on social media, and they are out there, I know that, and congrats, that's awesome. I love that for them, but it's not how I am. And I wish I was. I wish I could just say, oh, what? Facebook? What are you talking about? I don't even know anything. I'm never on it. I have friends who've never had social media. I have family members who've never had social media, and I'm jealous of them, but it's just not how I'm wired. So recognizing what I have been sacrificing to spend way too much time on social media, or to do something else for somebody else, it's like, that's when you start to really add up. That 4 hours a day ends up being almost 30 hours a week. And you're realizing, oh, I could do a lot of things with that time. and take my life in a totally new direction. I think it's exciting.
It is. I feel like this has opened up my mind to just have more optimism and like excitement towards life. I don't even really know why. I just think maybe I was getting less information in my brain, so I was able to just think a little bit clearly. And, I found my friends texted me, my select few. There's a select few. But I was like, if you're worried about, getting off social media because you're not going to have contact with people, you can contact them. It's okay. But as I said, that there's pros to social media. If you live in a rural area and you don't have anybody to connect with, really, like there's pros and cons to it. But the overall message I think I want to get out is just make sure everything you're doing in your life, in your dating life, all of that is just you're doing it with intention and you're aware of it, and just take stock of how it's affecting you and how your life might be better without it or with it. Just how can you do it more with intention?
Hey, it's Debbie, and Caitlin and I wanted to let you know, like our dating lives, we're going to be taking a pause from dating at her age, which will give you a great opportunity to go back and catch up and listen to all of our previous episodes. We've been dropping episodes for almost a year now, and it's been a blast.
But don't worry, you can stay connected with us on social media at Dating at Her Age, and we'll drop episodes as we can over the next coming months.